Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, September 12th, 2023 meeting of the Long Meadow School Committee. School committees and other public bodies may continue to hold remote meetings through March 31st, 2025, under legislation enacted on March 29th, 2023. The statute, Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, extends quorum reductions for remote meetings. All votes while there is remote participation must be made by roll call vote. This meeting is being recorded and aired live on LCTV. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have no correspondence for this evening, so we're moving into approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the school committee approve the minutes to the August 22nd, 2023 school committee meeting as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote. Zach?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. All right, moving on to visitor comments. If there are any visitors, I don't see any online. Any visitors who'd like to speak up here in the room or online? All right, we are moving on to school committee announcements and recognitions. Are there any members who would like to make any announcements or recognitions? All right, we continue on. Business with guests, we have none. School committee chair report, I just have three things, sorry. First off, reminder to all committee members that we should have by now all completed the conflict of interest training that was sent out by Tim Donnelly. He sent a follow-up email. If you have not taken care of that, please take care of it as soon as possible so that that can be checked off and all set. Next up is our school committee goals. Last time we met, we talked about a tentative date of September 26th for our school committee goal meeting, and that is going to be scheduled for the 26th. Just like last year, our plan is to first do a walkthrough of the different schools in the town with the administrative staff. So we will be meeting at 4:45 at our respective schools. Marty will be in touch in the next several days with a list letting everyone know which school to go to. We're going to try to shake it up. For those of us who were here last year, we'll see a different school than we did last year. And for our new folks, they'll see some of our schools as well. And then we will walk through our schools with administrators and meet back here at central offices for 5:30. So that we can have our goals meeting and discussion from 5:30 until about 6:45 or so. And then we will plan to push our regular school committee meeting time to 7 p.m. Questions about that timeline? Does that make sense? Reminder to anyone who's watching that the 5:45 or 5:30 back at central offices time, I think we're actually posting it for 5:45 if I'm correct, because we're getting back here for 5:30 and then give everybody a few minutes to get settled, etc. So that 5:45 goals committee meeting is publicly posted and accessible for anyone who would like, and then other reminder that our regular meeting will be at 7 p.m. Yes.
What time does it start at the school? Sorry.
4:45.
Okay.
All right, any other questions on that? Okay, and then last, just a big shout out to all of our education staff in all of the buildings over the last week. It was a really hot week, so just a huge thank you to everyone for working so hard to keep our students engaged and interested and happy, and just really appreciate the great start to the year in spite of the heat and humidity, and a special shout out to the Long Meadow High School staff for making a back to school night happen after a really long hot day, and having that be an opportunity for all of us to go in and find out more about classes. So big thank you to everyone for that work. And hopefully tomorrow will actually be cooler. All right, we are moving on to superintendent report.
Only one item for you tonight, and that is a reminder to mark your calendar for, if you're available, October 20th. There'll be a signing ceremony to solidify and memorialize the relationship between Long Meadow and Takakawa, Japan. And so we'll have our Japanese delegation will be here, along with representatives from the select board and other town offices, and we'll conduct the signing ceremony at that time, and we'll host a lunch for our guests as well. The delegation from Takakawa will be in Long Meadow, I think, from the 19th to the 22nd. So thanks to Paul Dunkerley and Lori Snyder for putting together a really rich agenda for our guests from Japan, and looking forward to that weekend. So October 20th.
That's wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
And thank you to those who are putting the work in to make that happen. Appreciate that. Any other administrative reports for this evening?
Nope.
No, all set. All right. We move on to our new student representative, Andrew Medeiros.
Alrighty,
Is that
thank
right?
you. So to start off, just start of the year, things are off to a really great start. Faculty and students just seem excited to be back. Things are going well with classes in general for the overall student body. And then moving into what's going on with our senior class, they just had their senior sunrise on Friday at 6 o'clock in the morning at the football field, and they all watched the sun come up, kind of metaphorically, on their senior year. I talked to Cecilia Allentuck, their vice president. She said they had really great turnout and they had great food and they had a lot of fun. And for the class of 2025, they don't really have any dates set yet for events, but they are currently working on class apparel for the fall, which is coming soon, as well as planning a homecoming for later in the fall. And then for the class of 2026, they had an ice cream party on Friday to start the year, and from what I saw in the cafeteria, they had really awesome turnout for all that. And then the Lancer Way is on Thursday at 5 p.m. and the Lancer Way is, I talked about it at the last meeting, it's sort of a club fair for clubs and student organizations at Long Meadow High School to sort of kind of present their club, to get new members to join that club. And it's just a way to kind of have people join all these separate communities that we have. And then the new LHS Writing Center in the library just opened up on Monday, and that is a student-run center that helps students tutor other students with their essays, their DBQs, their lab reports, just to help students in general with anything that can involve writing, even in your science classes. And then lastly, athletics are going really well, and our first home football game is this coming Thursday. I know field hockey had a game up at Frontier today, and boys and girls cross country had a meet at Amherst today. So that's about it for me.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Look forward to hearing more about the year as it progresses. Other reports? LPVC. Welcome, Mary.
Welcome. We have a meeting next Wednesday.
All right, awesome. Energy and sustainability is
Adam.
Adam.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So we'll hear about that next time. And Seal. Okay.
We had a meet and greet this last Saturday at Bliss Park, which was really well attended and a lot of fun. Really thank you to the Key Club. They did some awesome babysitting and engaging the little kids with bubbles and munchkins and fun. And it was great to meet a lot of new families that are new and other families that have been around. And Nicole was there and the assistant principal from Wolf Swamp, and there was a lot of great discourse between families and everybody there. And our first meeting is tomorrow night at the high school at 7.
Great, thank you. All right, we are headed into subcommittee reports. Finance sub does not have one, and policy, we're back to you, Michaela.
The policy subcommittee reviewed and are recommending the policies BDFA and BDFAE, which will replace the current policies BDFA, BDFAE1, BDFAE2, BDFAR. The new policies will be posted to the district's website to seek public input on the recommended policies. They will come back to you for the final review and approval in October 2023. And basically, this just condenses the current policies and makes the policies more accessible.
All right. Any questions or comments on that? All right, perfect. Curriculum sub, Mary.
Great. Curriculum Sub met on August 31st. we have a presentation this evening as part of our curriculum sub-report. And we talked a little bit about the literacy review and talked about sort of a timeline for how we will be implementing some of the advice and recommendations from the literacy review. And we'll meet again at least one more time before a decision is made to make a plan for how to move forward with our literacy programming. So great. So I don't know if I should turn it over to you.
Yeah,
Marty,
why
or-
not? Sure. So.
Hold on, I think that's
oh.
coming up, right?
Oh, it's coming.
Are we?
No,
Oh, no, it's part of this.
under-
I lied,
under
never
this
mind.
agenda.
I misread. I'm just expecting to roll
So,
forward.
As Mary mentioned, we had a great discussion at Curriculum Sub, taking a look at how we can better support students with their social emotional growth. And I think it's been a recent expectation of the committee and a goal of ours to really be more aligned and more purposeful and more explicit in our practices, particularly at the K-8 level, in terms of supporting student social emotional well-being. And Nilda Irizarry is our new Director of Student and Family Support. She gave a great presentation to the Curriculum Sub. We had a great conversation, and we're here tonight to talk to you about what our next steps would be and a recommendation for how we can improve in this area. Just a caveat that sort of no action is expected by the committee tonight. We think that this is one of those items that is sort of worthy of your consideration tonight. We will do our best to sort of let families know what this recommendation is and give them an opportunity to give us feedback and give the committee feedback. And then the hope would be that at your next meeting, you'd have a final opportunity to review and consider the recommendation that will be made tonight. So, Nilda, come on up, and I'll pull up your slide deck and we'll get started. So,
You brought a few things.
make sure.
Love that. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Zach, if you
All
could
right,
confirm
welcome.
for us that you can see that slide deck, is that
Just
okay?
make sure we're
Can you
good.
see that okay? All right,
Yes.
great.
All right, we'll turn it over to Ms. Irizarry.
I'll advance the slides at your command. So, I think we're, if I go full screen, let me see what it looks like if I go full screen here. There we go, okay. All right.
So I'm very excited to present this evening. The work that I'm presenting today is multi-years of work, and it's predominantly some of the work of our MTSS SELB committee that started this work last year and made some recommendations for social and emotional supports in our tiered interventions. The first slide really speaks to me as an educator. There is countless brain research that shows that all cognition has an emotional base, and that when emotions and cognition are balanced together, that's the prime optimal learning environment for all of our students. And Plato said thousands of years ago, all learning has an emotional base. We have additional research that says that when students are dysregulated, they essentially can't learn, they can't move forward. So I just want to thank Dr. O'Shea for supporting this initiative, the MTSS committee, and the school committee for many years of work in the areas of social emotional learning. So right aligned with our district improvement plan that started in 2021, when I first looked at Longmeadow, because I joined July 1st, this was one of the main things that attracted me to this district. When you look at these goals, I think the Longmeadow community should be very proud to send their child to Longmeadow Public Schools. Once you read through these goals, it's very clear that all educators are working to ensure that all students are successful and supported academically, social, emotionally, behaviorally, and for the entire district to be aligned with these goals shows that we're a student-first district. So right aligned with our goals, we started looking into the multi-tiered systems of support. We started strengthening the tiers of support, looking at all of our academic, behavioral, and social emotional interventions, doing an audit, seeing if there are any gaps that existed within our system. And one of the things that we noticed, while we may not have had gaps, we had great practices happening across the elementary school and the middle school that addressed social emotional learning, but they were essentially happening in silos, and they weren't aligned to have a comprehensive impact. So we were all doing great work, but almost essentially speaking a different language. One school did a little bit of peace builders, another school did some of responsive classroom elements, another school did peace builders, and what we were noticing is that while students were getting their needs met in a social emotional way, it wasn't necessarily compounded to a successful impact K-12. So part of the gaps that they identified was we needed increased alignment and we needed more supports at the Tier 1 level. And the last bullet point is just to ensure that we're supporting, through our budget, multi-tiered systems of support for our students. So all of these sub-bullets underneath this larger goal is saying we're going to do any and everything to ensure every student in Longmeadow is successful, all means all, and we're going to come up with ways to address any learning needs that they have.
I missed you.
That's okay. And then of course, we know that our district goals are aligned with DESE goals or state goals. In 2018, Massachusetts updated the MTSS blueprint. And of course, they highlighted that in the multi-tiered systems of support, we address students' academic needs, behavioral needs, social emotional needs, and that we build on the tiers of support. Tier 1 being the universal support that all students should access at the classroom level. Tier 2, the targeted small group support, and then Tier 3, that intensive support that maybe some of our students need a degree of more. It also is aligned with the commissioner's goals. One of the priorities in Massachusetts is that third numeric item that says support social emotional development, health, and safety of all students. So what you can see is that our district work has been aligned with the state work, and this work has not just been happening, recently. It's work that started in 2021.
There we go.
And I don't have to convince any educator of this, but I do want to just stress that emotions impact cognition. It impacts your attention, your memory learning. Research has shown that even in math classrooms, that a student's math identity oftentimes interferes with their performance. A student's growth mindset surrounding math concepts can oftentimes be the barrier to quality learning, the barrier to risk-taking in the classroom, relishing in mistakes, learning from mistakes. So we see that emotions have an impact on learning. Certainly creativity. You can't be in a creative space when you're feeling like you don't belong in that classroom community, when you are overwhelmed with your own emotions, stress, and anxiety. You can't enter that creative space. And then, of course, we've seen any neurologist, cardiologist, any doctor will tell you how stress and anxiety can manifest itself into physical symptoms, whether it's that stomach ache that students often have. So, right before an assessment, and they're saying, I really can't do one more thing at school. I may have a stomach ache. I need a break. So stress does have this, it does manifest physically, and it can lead to, sickness in many ways. It can also, emotions impact your ability to have healthy relationships, social awareness, social emotional skills as it comes to relationships with your peers. And we know that there are benefits of social emotional supports with students whenever school districts address social emotional supports. What we see is that maladaptive behaviors decrease. We know that all behavior is a form of communication, And when we address a student's social emotional needs, we get to the root of what is the barrier in that school setting. We see that students have an increased sense of belonging, and that equates to a reduction in bullying, it equates to a reduction of aggression, and an increase in student achievement, which really is our goal, to help students learn, achieve at greater degrees of success, especially when their emotions are regulated. So many of you might be thinking Long Meadow Public Schools is perfect, every child has the perfect life. And what we did here is we started digging through some of our data, and I thank the school committee for helping us be a data-driven district. We're constantly taking surveys and looking at what our students are saying about their experience. So these are very telling results. 57% of middle schoolers reported that their major source of stress is academics. 70% of high schoolers reported that academics is another major source of stress. School looks very different from when I went to school, might have looked very different from when you went to school. We have students that not only start their day early, are immediately going to athletics and then starting homework immediately after. Students are reporting stress-related health symptoms, so 71% of middle schoolers are saying that they either have lack of sleep, exhaustion, stomach problems related to stress, and this is now 83% of Long Meadow Public high school students are saying they experience these stress-related health symptoms. And then the last one, you may think, well, these are small numbers. These are students that say they don't feel confident or they have little confidence in their ability to cope. That's 27% of middle school students and 26%. But for all of us, we want that to be 0. We don't want any child saying, I don't know what to do when I'm stressed. I don't have any strategies. And so that number was, very alarming to me. And then there's additional data points. We administer the closed survey. 36% of students, that's more than 1 out of 3 students experience problematic stress and anxiety. And then the equity audit that was completed in 2021 recommended as a top priority that educators support students with social emotional skills related to empathy, peer communication, and relationship building, because that is what is the foundation of inclusivity in all school environments. So this is just a brief overview of the work of the MTSS SELB committee. And it was represented by administrators, K-12, so there were a representation from every single building, from elementary to middle school to high school. And administrators also were present on this committee. So over a year-long study, they inventoried our current practices, they identified gaps, and they started developing a comprehensive criteria for the selection of an SEL program. And 912 had SEL embedded lessons in the wellness blocks and the Connect blocks. So we focus primarily on K-8, not to say our program isn't going to extend into the high school as well. They explored some SEL programs. What we learned is that many of the districts in Western Mass, they use Second Step as their SEL program. We consistently use Second Step as well. So we have Second Step here at a Tier 2 support. Our counselors use Second Step resources to support students when they encounter problems, to help them with conflict resolution. We're going to continue that system, but we wanted something more, especially at the Tier 1 level. When we looked at Wayfinder, we examined many of the components, and what we learned is it wasn't CASEL endorsed. CASEL is one of the organizations that DESE aligns with, and our VOG aligns with, our Vision of the Graduate aligns with. So that was a really important metric for us in the selection of a social emotional program. So then we landed with Ruler as a Tier 1 social emotional support program. So we're not removing Second Step, we're adding in Ruler for additional support. The committee made that recommendation, and here, you probably need, oh, there we go.
There we go.
And here is part of what the committee came up with as an action plan and what our hope is to adhere to this school year. So in December, our hope is to send an implementation team for ruler training. That would be with representation from the elementary, middle, and high school level. We would initiate professional learning at the adult level on SEL. Then we would develop a scope and sequence for a potential pilot this year with small groups. Our hope is to monitor at a small scale, gather feedback from stakeholders, report out on findings to our larger school community, and then determine steps for implementation the following school year. And that would be a comprehensive district-wide plan for the 24-25 school year. This approach is thoughtful, methodical. It gives us time to be reflective over what adults have learned, and it helps the adults personalize it in a way that's appropriate for our students in Longmeadow. So why Yale Ruler? Here are some additional talking points. There is a video that I think you should see. This is the Yale informational video that just gives a highlight of a few of the skills.
Let me just stop the share for a minute. I gotta go back and make sure I share the sound. And Zach, if you can help us out and just let us know that you can hear this okay?
Ruler makes our school a better place.
I feel that Ruler has helped me because I'm able to show who I really am. I think after having Ruler come in, I've grown so confident and just like what I've always seen myself to be.
Ruler asserts that all emotions matter. All emotions. It's the full range of emotions that makes us human, and it's the full range of emotions that helps us to get through life. Ruler is a systemic approach to social and emotional learning. We want to give school districts the opportunity to build a common language for social and emotional learning.
Through Ruler, I learned how to share different emotions with different people and how to express my emotions with positive energy.
Too many kids are holding it all in, and we're seeing a rise in anxiety and stress in children that doesn't need to be there.
They're really thinking about cyberbullying and body shaming as opposed to academic.
If we are all working together on our social emotional language, we are making the school a safer, more caring, and joyful place to be for all children.
When I come into school, everybody's just so welcome. It's like I can trust everybody and let them know what's going on, and they'll be supported back.
Research shows that kids who go through this kind of training are less stressed. They do have less depression.
Going back and looking at my emotions and being what am I feeling right now and how can I regulate this? I think that's a really good thing to be teaching people.
Students are having better conversations with each other. Discipline incidents have decreased. Students are able to be more creative. It really supports the development of the whole child in every way.
Try to empathize with the other character as well. How do you think the other person felt? And how did the other person show and handle their feelings?
Ruler is a set of 5 key skills that are the underlying skills of emotional intelligence. Recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, regulating emotions. We use a set of anchor tools. Tools to help people build greater self-awareness, to build a better emotional vocabulary.
The tools have helped make our students more aware of their classmates.
We're trying to give everyone the opportunity to become more emotionally skilled.
We built the school-wide chart together. The whole school did it together.
The most important thing about the charter is you could see how everyone else wants to feel.
On our charter, some of the words we came up with were relaxed, comfortable, happy, excited.
We were able to relate to our classmates more because we realized they were feeling the same things as we were.
Signing the charter united this school. We're making this decision to be positive towards each other, to be nice.
In classrooms, we've seen students use the mood meter to check in and to regulate how they are feeling
if you go left to right, that's your pleasantness. And then when you go up and down, that's how much energy you have.
The yellow means your energy is high. The green means you're kind of calm. The blue means when you're sad, or glum, you're lonely. And the red means when you're like angry, you're not focused.
Where are you on the mood meter?
I think I'm on the green.
Blue is green.
A mix between green and yellow. I'm on the yellow because today's a new day.
To me, the meta moment is that tool that can be applied anywhere, and immediately.
When I take a meta moment, it makes me feel calm, relaxed.
Students are using tools like the meta moment so that they can avoid some of those situations that might escalate into something else.
Sometimes you just need to sit down in a quiet place and think about what's going on.
The key element of the meta moment is pausing and activating what we call our best selves.
My best self is me following my goals for the term.
Upbeat, happy, kind person.
Smart, courageous, confident.
The blueprint. It's been very helpful with students that are having an ongoing conflict.
Someone will come down in the red, mad. If you say to them, well, what happened? They'll just still be mad talking about it. So we'll give them the blueprint and have them just work on it. What happened? How are you feeling? How is the other person feeling?
You have to understand what people are thinking and going through, so you would have to like put yourself in somebody else's shoes.
I think she felt like she was excluded and that she was left out.
When we started doing these activities, it helped push me and it boosted up my confidence and made me like feel like I was important.
Ruler begins by training the adults in schools to shift their mindsets around the value and importance of emotions.
We spent a year working with staff, just teaching them the ruler skills and the anchor tools and using it in everything we did with each other.
Because educators, like kids, come from many different places. And so really getting them to take a look and reflect upon their own practices. What are they doing and how do they resolve the issues that they are feeling within?
We really are investing in making sure that all of the adults are all embracing this approach so that every student can be successful.
With this, you're going to be able to teach.
Our feeling word for today, boys and girls, is focus.
They're going to be able to receive what you're teaching. The kids are going to be able to learn.
We also work with families because we want children and their parents or caretakers to have the same language.
It's not just the schoolhouse, it's what's going on at sporting events, what's going on at home. When you're sitting around watching the evening news, how are you reacting to the news when your son or daughter is sitting next to you? You need to be aware how your emotion can influence them. There's no doubt that the ruler approach allows for enhanced learning.
I learn best when I feel happy and focused.
I think it's really like a life skill that they're giving us here.
We've seen through research and experiences that creating and cultivating supportive, inclusive environments are critical and foundational to the success of every student.
This is an embodiment of a whole philosophy of being. And I think it's one in this world today that we need.
This is an approach that is for everyone. It helps everyone learn strategies to help them manage their lives so they can be healthier, happier, and more effective. My real hope is that every school will embed these principles into the way leaders lead, teachers teach, and students learn.
And so I know that was a long video, but it was very comprehensive, and it gets me so excited to hear students talk about emotional regulation. We as adults have learned skills over time to regulate our own emotions, and we've thought over time that students would somehow learn these skills through osmosis, but we know that they need to be taught. There are ways that we as adults regulate, whether it's taking a pause, I'm not ready to have that conversation with you, I need a break, maybe it's music. We've developed these strategies. What we want to do is support students in developing strategies that work for them. I love that highlight of that focus on the adults. Educators need to be their best self to help students regulate. Dysregulated adults can't regulate students. So part of the ruler approach is to support our educators with their own social emotional skills. And the last piece is that family engagement, support, and resources so that our community can learn some of the strategies and sort of embed those in those practices as well. So the cost, it seems like $9,000 for 2 implementation teams is a lot of money, but which it is. But what I want to break down for you is what it comes with. Think about the cost of a curriculum, resources, materials, the cost of professional development, and the cost of an instructional coach. Within the Ruler implementation, what we have access to first is a platform for educators that includes lessons and activities from kindergarten through 12th grade. It has lessons and activities that are pre-made. For our team, we would certainly want to customize and personalize them to the great systems and structures that we already have in place in our schools. The second thing that they offer is coaching sessions along with that cost. So we would have a coach that can talk to us about the instructional practices. We can develop meetings, have them observe some of our implementation in practice for over 2 years, so they can see some of the work in action and offer us feedback on where we need to grow and develop. And the third one is it comes with professional development resources for our educators. This can include our paraprofessionals along with our support staff through the Ruler platform, and it includes sessions for families so that they can also be educated on the Ruler skills. When I spoke to districts who are using the Ruler approach, most of that was held virtually, and they were able to hold sessions for families so they can tune in and sort of hear more about what their children were learning in terms of social emotional development. I've found there are more Massachusetts districts, Bedford, Andover, and here are some that I was able to connect with. Sandwich Public Schools, I had a meeting with them this morning. They are in their 2nd year of implementation. They've invited Longmeadow educators to come out and see the work in action. They are really proud of their 2nd year of work. They said if we couldn't make it all the way down there, that they would be happy to host us via virtual, and we could meet with their implementation team. They want to talk to us about how it really shifted their school climate and culture, and they saw a change not only in educators but in their students. We learn best from practitioners who are doing the work, so I was really happy with the meeting I had this morning. There are many Connecticut schools. It's more than I've listed here. It's predominantly because it's a Yale-based program, and the training is in Yale New Haven, so there are many Connecticut districts that have adopted the Ruler approach. Dave spoke about in the video a few of the anchor tools. The first one is the charter. It has community norms and shared agreements. The difference between just creating norms and the charter has every individual identify what they're going to do to ensure that those norms and agreements are living and breathing within their school community. Our VOG, our Vision of the Graduate, has that accountability piece. So it's not just creating norms and agreements, it's actually coming up with commitments, saying what am I going to do to ensure that this school community feels safe, a sense of belonging, whatever words we come up with as a school community. The next one is the mood meter, which you saw students talking about. It's where students briefly sort of identify where they are on the mood meter. When I talked to representatives that are currently using the mood meter, they said the best utilization of a mood meter check-in is immediately after recess, because they found that students plotted themselves in the yellow and they had to take mindful moments to get them to the green so that they're ready to recenter and get ready for learning. And oftentimes they plotted themselves in the red because something happened at recess that a teacher didn't necessarily know about because they weren't out at recess, but their teacher now had a metric to say, well, what happened? Let's think about what occurred at recess and how we could resolve it prior to engaging in learning. The meta moment is that self-awareness activity where students pause, consider what they're feeling and what they need to do to re-regulate. What strategies do they have? And then the last piece is that restorative practice work. We know that students need consequences for their behavior, but this takes it a step further. It has students learning from their behavior, understanding the impact it had on their
school community, developing skills for mediation and conflict resolution so that they can learn from, potential setbacks. So emotional regulation, I just want, the school committee, anyone listening to think about how do you move yourself through these quadrants. So the first one is from yellow to green. So what do you do when you're very, very excited, but you have to calm yourself down? The next one is from blue to green. You're feeling a little tired. You've woken up in the morning, but you know you need to be ready to go for when you show up to an arena and people really are counting on you for your energy. So what do you do to shift some of your energy into the yellow? What do you do to move from a tired state to a more calm state? And then what do you do when you're very upset to move to a calm quadrant? So does anyone want to share something that they do to regulate?
Any takers?
I go for runs. Actually, a lot of my answers were I go for a run. So like if I need more energy, I go for a run, or sometimes if I have too much energy, I go for a run.
Great. And exercise is a great way to regulate your emotions.
I'll jump in. Music is a big one for me if I'm feeling in the red or the blue, to move me back over. It's also really helpful in the mornings to kind of get pumped up, wake up a little bit more, be ready to actually be energized and be in front of a classroom, et cetera. That's a helpful one for me. And then getting outside is always a reset for me. Any time outside is always super helpful with mood regulation.
I also run. She took my answer.
Yeah, me as well.
Lots of runs.
And then really thinking about that red quadrant for me, if I'm upset about something, just journaling, having some quiet time prior to engaging with others is a way that I recenter. What we hope is that our students can start thinking about ways that they can re-regulate, recenter, get themselves ready for learning throughout their school day, and that they develop strategies that are non-expansive or non-exhaustive, that they could come up with a whole host of strategies at school to recenter themselves. And most of these are things that educators do already, but one is music in each quadrant to teach empathy and perspective taking. So part of the work also looks like when a music teacher is teaching a new piece of music, talking through how does tempo and dynamics influence the mood of a song. And now students will play the song but really understand the emotional base behind that piece of music. It's the same with the arts. If anyone has studied Picasso and his blue period, it really aligns nicely with the mood meter and talking about how art evokes mood and emotion. The next piece is thinking about how to shift your students' emotional state for instructional activities. So when you want students to be in a creative space or brainstorm, playing upbeat music, allowing for some movement around the room, whether it's you putting up vertical whiteboards where students can move around and suggest ideas, you're creating a sense of energy and excitement around brainstorming. So this really helps educators come up with the tools for how can they shift a student's emotional state to get them ready for learning. The next one is debating. Oftentimes students can enter a debate but not really understand the emotional base of a debate. We have students that take American history and they have to engage in a debate. Well, what really was the historical context of this debate? What were the emotions that were fueling this historical time period? And then they enter ready to engage in this debate. And we certainly want students showing empathy when they're proofreading and editing. I am an English teacher, but I remember the red pen and the slashing through edits, and that certainly is not what we want students to do to each other when they're peer editing. So that blue space is really creating the norms and conditions around showing empathy with editing. So where do we start? Just
like you saw in the video, we do start with educators. This image really is striking to me. We are experiencing, educators are experiencing a degree of burnout. You've seen articles about how educators feel like I just can't take one more thing on my plate. I'm being asked to do so much. I don't know if I have the emotional capacity to be there for students at the same level that I was in the past. So part of the work is really helping educators examine their identity, explore their emotions throughout the school day. We know that emotions are contagious. If I smile at you, you're going to smile back. If I'm angry and I head into the room, if I say, "Ooh, it's hot in here," someone's going to mimic that and say, "Wow, it is hot in here." So educators and their emotional state certainly impacts students. We're going to sort of teach them how to come up with compassionate curiosity, which is asking students how they feel and not assuming things about students, and then establishing work boundaries. There are many educators, and we know this, that don't shut off when they go home. They're still grading, they're still editing, they're still looking at online, answering emails. We want to help educators cope with home boundaries so they could be their best selves, not only at school, but for the people at home that matter as well. So again, this is the outline. I did want to share that we've gathered resources for families. So if families want to come and look at the lessons, they are more than welcome. We have elementary and middle lessons. We have middle school and high school lessons, along with family engagement resources for viewing that will be here in the school committee room of central office. But then I thought, well, our families, like how many families are so busy they're not going to make the trip down to see these resources? So part of Dr. O'Shea's recommendation was, go out to our open houses. We have our middle school open house night this week. So there will be a table with ruler resources available to families to peruse, to look at some lessons and tools. So we're coming to them instead of them feeling they have to make their way here. And I'll be present at both middle schools for a certain amount of time. I wish there were more of me, but I have a half hour at Williams, a half hour at Glenbrook. If families see me, I invite them to come up to me, ask a few questions about the ruler approach and the ruler program. And the following week, I'll be at the elementary schools, just answering a few questions and having resources available for families there too.
It's a wonderful idea. Thanks for doing that.
Additionally, we'll push out this meeting, the clip to families so that they have an opportunity to see the presentation and hear the explanation as well. So we'll have a couple of weeks where we'll, try to make the information accessible to families and hopefully provide us with some valuable feedback in preparation for the committee's final consideration at your meeting on the 26th. But happy to answer any questions you might have tonight.
All right, so we'll open to discussion / questions. Jamie.
Yeah, that was a wonderful presentation. Thank you. And the one thing I have a question, is this taking the place of the other programs that are at the elementary school and kind of unifying us?
Yes.
I was trying to connect, I think that's what you said at the
Yes.
beginning, right?
Yes.
So like your peace builders and whatnot, which it's not that, it's different, but it's not.
Yes.
So that'll take the replace, so then across our whole district will be one philosophy.
Exactly.
One type of program, okay. I wasn't quite following it, but I just wanted to make sure.
And
With the
there-
focus on K-8 to begin with, and then, as we get into the 24-25 school year, we start to think about how, the application at the high school level. But there's a lot of teacher tools, as Nilda suggested, that are applicable, in any school, in any setting.
And just to add, Winchester Public Schools started K-8, and what they were realizing is that students were going up to the high school with the ruler language, and the teacher said, train us, get us ready, we want to participate too. So then it became natural that there was a K-12 extension and approach.
Got it.
Other questions, comments, feedback? Yeah? Andrew.
So something that I really resonated here was how you saw that 10 to 15% increase in stress between middle school and high school. And I think that's from what I can tell, that seems to be as a result of more homework and increased class difficulty. So something that I want to ask you is there any options to implement time management into this program, especially in the middle school, because I think that helps prepare students for high school?
Yeah, I think there is a strong piece of this that is part of executive functioning, which is like helping kids organize themselves for learning and giving educators the strategies to help students organize themselves as well. But you're absolutely right that time management is something that, once again, we can't negate, has to be taught. Prioritizing the tasks, learning like what not to put off. I was talking to a high school student today. They were in the peer leaders training, and this student was almost grappling with, well, what do I do first when I get home? What do I do next? What do I have time for today? What do I leave off for tomorrow? It's almost like a week-long organization of what you have to get done. And you've had a long day today too. You went straight throughout the school day, sports, and then you're here. So of course you have to come up with ways to prioritize, and what you're saying is students definitely need support with that too.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. Right.
Well, just a note to the community, thank you for this. You came and presented at the subcommittee, and a lot of the questions that we had in the initial presentation, you addressed above and beyond, really. And so just thank you for the presentation tonight and for incorporating our feedback from the subcommittee meeting. And I feel like going to the schools to have resources available for parents to provide feedback is just a wonderful idea. So thanks.
And I was very impressed with our subcommittee because they asked such tough questions that really helped me flesh out the presentation. And since you asked such clear questions, it allowed me to make connections with other districts that were implementing Ruler, really pushed me in my desire to know more, and it made me more excited about the program.
Thank you. All right, other thoughts, questions, feedback? Yeah,
So where do most of these other schools start? Do they do a couple classes? Do they pick one school? Do you do more than one school?
Such a great question. So they have the train the trainer model, use the group to change the group model. So you would train an elementary implementation team. You train a middle school implementation team. On this implementation team, you could have classroom teachers, school leaders, whether it's instructional coaches. They go out to the Ruler training. They become trained, and they bring the training back to the building level, and the adults begin to share in that learning, whether it's at faculty meetings, team meetings. They start developing the structures to educate the entire school community back at their buildings. What this really does is encourages teachers to become leaders, instructional experts. It expands like that coaching model that we already have. And I learn best, this is me as an educator, I learn best from practitioners. So the fact that they're going to be learning from someone who's a classroom teacher after they experience the training and hearing which pieces work, which pieces don't, is really important. After that implementation team is trained, and then they train the adults, then they can start using the practices with students. Our hope is that this implementation would trial some of the strategies with their students, and then create an implementation plan for their building specific, with the work of this committee, and for district-wide implementation the following year. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yep, it does. Yep.
Okay. All right. Zach, any questions or feedback on your end?
Nothing for me, no. Thank you.
All right, great. Anything further? Thank you so much for coming out tonight. It was great to get to see. I know that some of us are curriculum subs, so we'd seen some of the material, but just to echo Mary, that it was great to see more information and to hear some of the questions we had answered, and really appreciate you taking the time to do the middle schools and elementary school open houses. I think that's an excellent way to ensure a little bit more access for families who, like you said, might not have the time to come in. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you
appreciate
so
that
much.
work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. So as a reminder to the committee and also anyone who's listening, this material will be available for the next 2 weeks. You can find it here in the school committee room, neatly set out, and also at the open houses for the middle schools and elementary schools. 2 weeks from now, on the 26th, we will reconvene and we can begin a discussion at that point, being ready to move forward with a decision. Hopefully have some feedback by then. All right, moving forward into evaluation subcommittee. So we met prior to this meeting. Dr. Shea walked us through his first draft of his goals plan for the year. And we are going to return to this topic in 2 weeks. Thank you for taking the time to put together your goals. It was a great conversation, and got to hear a little bit more about the direction you're headed with that work. And we'll come back to that when we have time for the whole committee to review that document. So keep an eye out for that committee in the next week or so, and then you can give that a review, and we'll talk about it again on the 26th. Anything you want to add on that?
No, I appreciate the feedback from the evaluation subcommittee, and we'll make the final edits and refinements and get it off to the full committee for your review at your next meeting. No.
All right. Okay, we are moving forward into ongoing business, middle school building committee report. Dr. O'Shea, you're taking that one?
Certainly. This should be fairly brief for you tonight, but wanted to share with you. This is a file that describes the latest and greatest stage on our journey towards addressing the physical plant-related needs at our 2 middle schools. The Middle School Building Committee appointed an OPM selection subcommittee. OPM is the Owner's Project Manager. This firm would serve as our support and our intermediary between the design team and ultimately a construction firm. And so this was a intense couple of months of work to get us to selecting an OPM, and you can see the timeline there. Most recently on September 6th, we sent to the MSBA what's called the OPM selection package, and this includes a narrative and other documents associated with that selection process. So kudos to the selection subcommittee, which was led by the chair of the building committee, Armin Ray, for going through a very, very thorough review process to help us identify an OPM that we have selected to be sent off for consideration by the MSBA being the Mass School Building Authority. So the firm that was selected was Colliers, and Colliers is familiar to the community. They've done some work on other town projects, and so included in that OPM selection package that was sent to the MSBA was the documents that you see listed here, a narrative, the initial request for services, the meeting minutes, the advertisement that solicited firms, that solicited bids. Collier's application is in there, along with the reference checks that were done by that selection subcommittee. So a really thorough, lengthy process that helped us arrive at the selection of Colliers that will be considered by the MSBA at a meeting on October 2nd. Our hope would be that the MSBA would approve our selection, that we would execute a contract, finalize, I should say, a contract with Colliers, and we would have an OPM, and then the next stage would be to select a design team to put us on the road to initiating that feasibility study, which will take anywhere from 12 to 18 months, it seems, but it will help us identify the most cost-effective, the most educationally appropriate solution to address the needs of our 2 middle schools. So excited to hit this milestone and look forward to the next steps. So wanted to make sure that the committee was up to speed on the work of the middle school building committee. So,
All right,
happy-
questions, comments, thoughts on that? Thank you, and just to echo a big thanks to that OPM selection subcommittee. That was a really heavy lift and a lot of work that went into that, so thank you for taking that on. All right, we have no new business. I do have a recommended motion for an executive session.
I move that the school committee meet in an executive session pursuant to MGL C30A 21A purpose to conduct a strategy session in preparation with collective bargaining with Unit D and Purpose 7 consideration of release of executive session minutes of previous meetings to reconvene into open session.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We, again, will be reconvening into open session. We'll do a roll call vote. Zach?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. All right, we are officially in executive session. We will return to open session as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're clear.
Thank you.
You don't have to stay.
You do not.
You ready?
Yes.
All right, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Thank you and welcome back to the September 12th, 2023 school committee meeting. We are reconvened and we are picking up with new business. We have a Unit D memorandum of agreement. Did you want to speak to this or shall we just move right to our motion?
If you'd like me to, this would increase the number of days that are available to clerical staff at Blueberry Center in Wolf Swamp during the summer, and it would switch the clerical positions at Glenbrook and Williams from full-year positions to positions that have simply additional summer days.
All right, I will entertain a motion on this.
I move that the school committee approve the memorandum of agreement with the Long Meadow Education Association, Unit D, dated September 12th, 2023, as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote. Zach?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. We have one final motion to make to close out our evening.
I move that the school committee adjourn the September 12th, 2023 school committee meeting.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will move to a roll call vote. Zach?
Yes.
Michaela?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
And yes for me as well. Thank you and have a good evening. We'll see you all again on the 26th.
Good night.
All right.
We're done.
Thank you.
When is it going to cool off? Thursday?
You know
Then
what?
we get a hurricane, is that how
Tomorrow
it's going?
I don't believe it at all anymore.
Tomorrow
we're getting
rain again, and then it's supposed to be cool in here, like a lot of
I like
times in
it.
the day.
Feels
It
good.
blows, and so you like.
Freezing?
Well, yeah, Your office. Yeah, you get your short sleeve shirt on, and it's like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
In your office, not so much mine. No, yours is like normal.
I believe it in. We did too. I think we don't have
You
AC.
know.
So
It's who you know.
Because it's like, we start in preschool with
Good
after
night.
like ease them in. And a lot of them really went to school after such.
That's very funny, sis.
And so, yeah, they're just like, oh, what is
We-
that?
we,
I'm like, wait, this is it.
We never really had any. I'm not aware.
Yeah.
We're not to practice.
Even
Even
high
high
school
school
kids
kids feel like that, so.
Some
Wait,
boards
they're-
will,
they were eating
some